It's a mad, 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 mad world. But it's ours, so we might as well enjoy it as we relax and lampoon the news. I'm your
Ishi
man,
Hakase.
bringing you the funny, the weird, the strange, the unbelievable, the stupid, the refreshing, and maybe even something a bit provocative. So, you know what to do. Grab your drink, grab your snack, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. So, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And we know this quote from William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And it essentially means what someone is, or what something is called, is arbitrary compared to its intrinsic qualities. Your name correlates to your reputation. Our choices define us, which then gives value, or at least perceived value, to your name. And this is how you will eventually be remembered.
Who that called my name?
Yeah, I call you
People will say a name is just a sound that people make when they
Even
want
proud
to
of
get
me.
attention. Others will ask, do names really matter when it comes to how someone's life will turn out? Would he be arguably the greatest golfer in the world if he went by Eldrick? Who? Yes, Eldrick. Oh, you mean Tiger. Tiger Woods. So for generations, parents have named their children after ancestors or a member of a monarchy, or perhaps even coming from a biblical reference. But now parents try to preordain their child's future with names like Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, a winner. But does this really work? Well, we know there was one study several years ago, and relatively speaking, we see that it does have some degree of influence. So this study was done where investigators sent out resumes to companies in the Chicago area with the exact same credentials, except for the name. So study A used, again, all the same material, except they used a name that I will describe more as ethnically colorful. So names like Jamal and Lakeisha, and that was in one set of the resumes. And then set B, they used names like Emily and Greg. And you guessed it, Emily and Greg received 50% more callbacks. And the summation is, yeah, it's based on the name, and there's some microaggression that's happening there. So I started thinking more about names when I read that Kanye West wants to, or has already changed his name to Ye, as in Kanye. Now, initially when I read this story, I wasn't sure if it was Ye, Ye, Yai, Yo, You, but I just assumed that it's Ye for Kanye. I personally think it would be much more interesting if it was Yee. But now I can see the comments coming in the chat. I know. But I'll tell you now, I never got Kanye. I never got it. I just didn't understand the notoriety and the fandom. And I'm just not big on him. But that's what makes the world go round, right? We have choices. And some things you like and some things you don't like. And that's fine. What I will say is, as far as a name change goes, he has the right to do whatever he wants to do. But bear in mind, Kanye West has pretty strong name recognition. And usually when you change a name for any purpose, whether that's branding or rebranding or reinvention or escapism, the important thing to keep in mind is your name over time builds up equity. And in his case, as I've said, he's got a high degree of equity. But when you change anything, whether it's your name, your corporate identity, or the Coca-Cola formula, when you change something, you will give up some equity. And again, his equity's pretty strong. Is he prepared for some equity loss? Yee! Let's not forget when Snoop Dogg changed his name to Snoop Lion. All right, the Lion never got any traction. Right? No one calls him by that name because Snoop Dogg was pretty strong and cut across lots and lots of demographics. So now I recently saw on a social media post, if you could go to one concert, and these were all late artists, but if you could go to one concert, which one would it be? And it had pictures of Michael Jackson and David Bowie and Bob Marley, Jimi Hendrix, Whitney Houston. And for me, and for your man,
Ishi Hakase.
it was a very easy choice, and that was Prince. And in 1993, Prince announced that he was going to change his name to the love symbol. And at the time, the artist said in a statement, it was an unpronounceable symbol whose meaning had not yet been identified. You know, the symbol is all about thinking in new ways and tuning into a new frequency. And because of this, because it was unpronounceable, he ultimately became known as the artist formerly known as Prince, before eventually changing it back to simply Prince in 2000. And Prince lost no equity. And my recall is that this was motivated by some legal wranglings that he had with his record company. But Prince was still at the core of his identity. So then thinking about name changes, I spent some time confused with all the name changes that Sean Combs went through. And I didn't know if that correlated to his personal life, but I'll let somebody else tease that out. But he was Puffy and Puff Daddy, and P. Diddy and Diddy and Sean John, and Brother Love, and Sean Love Combs. And so eventually this rapper, producer, who was born Sean Combs, was known as Puffy and then Puff Daddy in the early part of his career. And then in 2001, he announced that he would be changing his name to P. Diddy. And then in 2005, he changed his moniker once again, dropping the P and going by Diddy. Man, I need you to hold still. Now, of course, Sean has his reasons, but to legally change your name to align with your social media presence, I ask, is that a bridge too far? Well, not for Sheben, who frequently appeared on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, another thing I don't get, and hanging out with his best friend Kim Kardashian. He legally changed his name to Food God to align with his restaurant-focused Instagram account. Deep cleansing breath. You all remember Lisa Bonet? Yeah, we all liked her. Well, she changed her name to Leela Coy Moon. Though she still goes by Lisa Bonet professionally, the actress changed her name in '95 following her split from Lenny Kravitz. So you ask, who is Aubrey Graham? Well, I'll give you a hint. He started from the bottom. Yes, it's Drake. So before he was a Grammy Award-winning rapper and Toronto Raptors superfan, he had us all up in our feelings as Aubrey Graham. Now, we're really dialed into hearing our names. You can be in a crowd with lots of chatter, and you hear, yo, and your name, and you immediately turn around. And we have this remarkable ability to filter out our names and recognize it. My cousin and I, we used to go to the mall, and when we'd see somebody walking by, in a sports jacket, and and they had their name on it, or maybe their nickname was on it, we would wait until they passed, and then we would go, yo, Karen! Then Karen would turn around, not recognize anybody that was calling her. Then she'd walk away, yo, Karen! And she'd do it again. And I gotta tell you, these people got so frustrated and so angry. But boy, Michael and I, we had a good time. What can I say? We were bored. Michael, I miss you. Get in touch. Then there are, of course, nicknames. An informal name, usually called by your friends and family, usually based on your real name or some characteristic you had or some descriptive quality. And, a lot of them, they do make sense. So we have Elizabeth turns into Liz. And we get Jen from Genevieve. And we have a Katie, and her name is actually Catherine. Now, Peggy from Margaret, I never understood that. I tried to understand William to Bill. I was always mystified by that. But until I met a dude, and his name was Bill, and he told me it was short for billion. Damn! I'll be damned. Your parents named you Billion? Talk about having a little pressure put on you. Now, maybe this guy was pulling my chain, but let's see how Billion's life turns out as we move along. I went to school with a guy named Tiny. Yes, you guessed it. He was the biggest man on campus. And so what happens when you actually outgrow a nickname? So I knew a guy named Weasel growing up. He was the older brother of one of my very good friends. And Weasel was lanky and skinny, and he was a distance runner. So back then, Weasel fit. And then many years later, probably 10 or 15 years later, I ran into him. And he was with his wife and his young children. And I almost exclaimed, "Yo, Weasel!" And then I realized, ooh, his wife and children may not know him by that name. And I don't want to embarrass him. So I proceeded to have a 5 to 10 minute, very awkward conversation with him and his family. Shamefully, because I had no idea what his real name is. I have known a 7 and an apple, a booger, a pot, a sky, a fruity, a pinky, a baby arm, Cooney, and yuck. And to the last 3, I send you my apologies now. And then there's the arbitrary assumptive nickname. So I had a good friend named Robin, and everybody called him Robert. I have a friend named Tim, and people called him Hector. And I always laugh at that show Family Guy. And the main character, Peter Griffin, all of his children call him Dad, except the baby, Stewie, who actually calls him the Fat Man. And then, of course, we have people that have such notoriety, they can just go by one name, like Madonna or Shakira. Then you have people that they have to go by 2 names, like LeBron James, or maybe my good friend Paul Brown. I hope you're listening, but nobody knows him as Paul. We only know him as Paul Brown. And then it gets a little crazy, of course, when you have these ultra long names, like this guy Raymond J. Johnson Jr. And this goes way, way back. You can look it up on YouTube. You might find a video. Of this guy, and his whole kind of comedy act was, he was smoking a cigar, and then somebody would say, "Hey, Johnson," and he would turn around and go, "Grr, you can call me Ray, or you can call me Jay, or you can call me RJ, or you can call me RJ Jr., or you could call me Johnny." And he had all these permutations to his name, and then he concluded his act by saying, "But just don't call me Johnson." And I just remember my uncles being really entertained by this and seeing him on variety shows and television commercials. And like Kanye, I don't get it. Yee! Now, let's not forget about suffix names, my favorite being derived from Godzilla. So anything or anyone with the suffix Zilla has to be gargantuan or totally badass. So we got Bootzilla, we got Cadzilla, And yes, Snoop briefly changed his name to Snoopzilla. If you don't know what Catzilla is, go look it up. You'll find pictures on the internet. It is a Cadillac that was owned by ZZ Top. And unfortunately, one of the members of ZZ Top just passed away. But it was a wickedly cool custom. So go take a look. Now, people strongly identify with their names. And they want to be unique. But nothing is quite like being named unique. And they really, really want to be unique, especially when they go about changing the spelling of unique. So I looked up all the unique spellings of the name Unique, and there was like 30 of them. And some of them, I'll let you be the judge. But we have this version of Unique, and we have this version, Unique, and then the Unique, and then Unique or Unique, and then Unique. There's a shortened version of it, and maybe my favorite is U space N apostrophe lowercase q Unique. I can just imagine seeing that on the roster for the first time and being, we say, confused. You know, celebrities change their names all the time for lots of reasons. They want a catchy name, a memorable name, or maybe their original name doesn't suit them to their liking. And there's more than you think. Like Olivia Wilde, her real name is Olivia Cockburn, and she took the last name of author Oscar Wilde after starring in one of his plays in high school. Joaquin Phoenix, who I really like. Joaquin Phoenix, his real name is Joaquin Bottom, and he changed it because his parents adopted the name to represent a new beginning. John Legend was originally named John Stevens, and that came from his friends calling him a legend because he was so talented. And so it just grew to the point there that he just adopted it, and now it's become his real name. And then there's Bruno Mars, and Bruno Mars was named Peter Hernandez, and he changed his name because he didn't want to be stereotyped as a Latin singer. Jennifer Aniston was Jennifer Anastasakis, and her father, who was also an actor, changed this Greek name so he could get more work. Miley Cyrus, her name's Destiny Cyrus, and the name Miley came from her childhood nickname, which was Smiley. So Smiley to Miley Cyrus. And Nicolas Cage, he's Nicholas Coppola, and he changed his name to, curiously, disassociate himself from his uncle, Godfather director Francis Ford Coppola. And you would think that might be an opportunity to leverage the equity in the Coppola name, but hey, he's got his reasons. And Iggy Azalea, named Amelia Kelly. And she took this name because her dog's name was Iggy. And the street that she grew up on was Azalea Street. Jamie Foxx, another really talented guy. His name is Eric Marlon Bishop. And he changed his name because when he started doing stand-up comedy, he noticed that female comics were being called first to perform during open mic nights. So he decided to go with a gender-neutral name. And we see that certainly as a big trend in naming young ladies and young boys nowadays. And maybe you could be an action hero if your name is Mark Sinclair Vincent, but You'll probably get more work if your name is Vin Diesel. I can't even get my voice that deep, and I've got a pretty deep voice, but certainly Vin Diesel sounds much, much more intimidating. So, look, if you're going to change your name, or you might have a new baby on the way and you're looking for something unique, I say go juvenile with it. Go with the classic IP Daily or IP Freely. And let's not forget maybe the very best, made famous from The Simpsons, Amanda Hug and Kiss. And if you all remember that episode, they Bart call up a bar, and barkeep would answer hello, and it's like, yeah, I'm looking for my friend Amanda Hug and Kiss. Would put the phone down and say, is anybody in the house named Amanda Hug and Kiss? I'm looking for Amanda Hug and Kiss. And boy, the whole bar would erupt in laughter. Well, if you want to do a little digging, I'll ask you all to go look up the Tube Bar. And I believe the Tube Bar is in North Jersey. And it was a whole series of so-called secret recordings that people were calling up bar. And the barkeep had this really, really raspy voice. And they were calling out names like this. And then finally, the barkeep caught on to the bit. And that is a really, really funny next 40 minutes. You'll probably be able to find some clips online. So I have a few more recommendations for you if you're looking to go juvenile. So you got Drew a Blank and Pediatric. We might call him Pediatric. Then You Are Awesome. Dr. Peter Burns. Ronald G. His friends call him Ron G. Anita Checkup. Seymour Butts, not to be confused with Seymour Ascrack. And Peter Pants. And I can tell you, if I keep talking for another 2 or 3 minutes, these names are going to devolve into something way, way more raunchy than I want to get into in this evening. So remember, everybody, names, they're really interesting. I want you all out there to know I'm speaking in code right now, but I'm trying. Your name is not a burden. Own it. Celebrate it. Make it matter. Have fun with it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So again, remember, you matter. We want you here. There's lots of good things happening in the world. There's lots of good positives in spite of all the chaos that we're seeing in the news. But just stop through every now and then. We'll try to cheer you up. We'll try to keep it light. Make sure that we're focused on the levity. So when you have time, subscribe. Why? You know why. You know what the platform won't be doing anything. And if you have news, hit me up. It's weird. It could be funny, shocking, goofy, generally unbelievable. Send it along. You know how to find me.
Ishi Hakase.
If you go to Instagram, don't forget the dot.
Ishi Hakase.
And that's my name. That's my time. You all keep your heads up and spread the word and stay safe. And much love.